Hello, everybody. It is I, Mr. Aaron, and we are back once again for some more stories. Of course, we will be continuing Dragonology Chronicles, The Dragon's Eye today. So you may remember when we left off yesterday, they had discovered the clue on Ebenezer Crook's gravestone, and they had gone back to London to grab some equipment because they were headed off to the mountain they needed to go to find the Dragon's Eye based on the clue. And while they were on the train out to the mountain, the train got attacked by a dragon who appears to be under the command of the evil Ignatius Crook. And so the Cook siblings, Daniel and Beatrice, had just fallen into Ignatius's clutches while Dr. Drake is in great peril aboard the train, being attacked by the dragon. So that is where we are picking up today. Let me take a sip of water before I get started here. There we go. Okay. "Let go of us!" shouted Beatrice, trying to move as far away from Flitz as possible. Ignatius turned to look at us. His white face and teeth were thrown into relief by the gloom of the carriage interior. He tapped on the floor with his dragon-headed cane, and the carriage set off along the road. "I'm so glad you could make the show," he said. "It is a tragedy, of course. You are just in time for the climax." He pulled down the carriage window and gestured towards the train with his cane. Most of the passengers seemed to be either cowering in the carriages or running away in various directions, but there was one figure who was standing right near the front of the train, standing stock still, waving his hands high in the air, trying to attract the dragon's attention. It was Dr. Drake. But if he was trying to distract the dragon's attention away from the other passengers, he did not seem to be having much luck, as it was still flying up and down the train. Suddenly, the dragon spotted him. It turned and, jetting a huge spout of flame, bore straight down on him. Both Beatrice and I shouted frantically, but it was no good. Dr. Drake managed to duck the first jet of flame that the dragon blew at him, and then it landed right in front of him and knocked him flying with a blow from its gigantic claw. As Dr. Drake struggled to his feet, the dragon reached its head back, took in a deep breath, and blew another enormous jet of flame at him. We watched as the angry dragon blew blast after blast of searing fire over him until the carriage turned a corner and we could see no more. Ignatius Crook pushed up the window of the carriage. "An appropriate end, don't you think?" he said, "for a man who infects even children with his nonsense about conserving and protecting dragons." Beatrice and I were too stunned to reply. Ignatius continued, "No doubt you are aware that I had hoped poor Ernest's end would come sooner rather than later, but needs must." "You're a monster!" I shouted angrily. Flitz looked up expectantly, but Ignatius ignored him. "Oh, I'm worse than that," said Ignatius with a sneer. "Let us go!" shouted Beatrice. "What have we got to do with any of this, anyway?" "Ha!" said Ignatius, "as though you know anything about how that so-called doctor has usurped my rightful place as head of the secret and ancient society of dragonologists. You may know that my father, Ebenezer, was not at all disposed to pass on the secret of the whereabouts of the Dragon's Eye to Dr. Drake. But he was a weak man. At the end he repented and caused a vital clue to its whereabouts to be cut into his gravestone. But one of you must have spotted the clue, of course. It was in the Dragon Diary. The Dragon's Eye shall be mine soon enough. I am taking you to Ben Wyvis. The dragon who lives there will no doubt be quite ready to believe that it was Dr. Drake who stole Scorcher when I return him to her. And if he does not, then I have a very simple backup plan." At this, Ignatius pointed at something under the seat. It was the box of dragon dust. In any case, I have something to sweeten the bargain," he added. "She is sure to give up the dragon's eye when I present her with the 2 children of the man who stole something else that was very precious to her, and then there will be no one standing between me and mastery of the SASD. "Dr. Drake said you tried to poison Father when he wouldn't let you copy the diary," said Beatrice. "Oh, did he now? That wasn't very nice of him. But I am no friend of your parents. They chose to side with Dr. Drake, may he not rest in peace, in preventing me from coming into my rightful inheritance, and I shall make sure they suffer the consequences of those actions. But I haven't introduced you to my friend, Miss Grinchka. She is a friendly Russian dragonologist who has been helping me to reclaim what is rightfully mine. She is conducting some experiments related to dragon illnesses. I find the topic quite boring myself, but Miss Grinchka has achieved some remarkable results over the years, particularly among the Naga of northern India. I believe she has something special planned for your parents." Alexandra Grinchka smiled. "I am delighted to make your acquaintance at last," she said. "I was watching you in the forest. At the time I was planning to kidnap you, but after your first little outing with that Darcy boy, I'm afraid you were too well guarded, and I missed my chance. You both seem to have a considerable talent for dragonology. What a shame you will never get a chance to develop it." Chapter 21. Ben Wyvis. The next day, after an uncomfortable night in a dingy cottage near Dingwall, we set off for Ben Wyvis. Beatrice and I struggled along, tied together with a rope held by Ignatius. Meanwhile, the 2 ruffians were trying to manhandle a large crate onto a wheelbarrow. Angry chirping noises were coming from inside, and, at one stage, one of them was bitten on the hand. Alexandra Grinchka had not joined us. "Scorcher must be waking up," said Ignatius, stopping to take a pinch of powder from the box of dragon dust, and then blow it into the crate. "There, that will send him to sleep again, no doubt. But we must make haste. We do not want Scramasax to catch us on the hillside." We set off again, but not towards the summit of Ben. Instead, we skirted it and stumbled along a slope that was covered with shingle and loose boulders. From time to time, Flitz flew on ahead, then returned to perch on Ignatius's shoulder. Finally, we arrived under a rocky outcrop to find the mouth of a cave. By now, Ignatius's hired ruffians were lagging farther and farther behind, and so he made us wait while they dragged the wheelbarrow up the last steep bit and pulled it into the entrance of the cave. Then he lit a torch. "Bring Scorcher," he said as he led us inside. It was not a wide cave, of the sort that I had always associated with dragons, but more of a tunnel entrance. There was evidence of dragon activity, however. The roof of the tunnel was blackened with smoke, and the floor was littered with animal bones. Ignatius was soon tugging us along behind him, farther and farther into the tunnel. A smell that reminded me of Scorcher grew stronger and stronger, and it was getting hotter. The light from Ignatius's torch was not very strong, but even so I could see some oddly shaped letters scratched onto the sides of the walled tunnel, and the skull and crossed bones of a deer arranged on the floor, almost like a warning. Flitz did not seem to like the place at all. He crawled off Ignatius's shoulder and hid himself inside his jacket. "We are here," said Ignatius, reaching out his torch into a vast cavern. I heard the beast breathing before I could see anything. Then I saw 2 enormous eyes glaring at us in the darkness. The eyes seemed very angry, but for a brief moment, as they turned towards the crate, they were full of longing. Suddenly Beatrice gasped. I tore my eyes from Scramasax and saw that the whole floor of the cavern was covered in golden artifacts, with gems sparkling here and there. It was the dragon's treasure, and sitting on the very top of the treasure, her tongue flicking in and out of a thin column of smoke rising from her mouth, was Scramasax. I glanced at Ignatius. He looked anxious. His eyes scanned the treasure. I guessed he was looking for the dragon's eye. Ignatius bowed and forced us both to our knees. Then Scramasax opened her mouth and spoke. Her voice was strong and rich, with an accent that was quite foreign, as though she was communicating in a language that was not her own. "Ignatius Crook," she said, "you are forbidden from entering my lair on pain of death." "I have come to return your chick," said Ignatius in a quivering voice, "and I have a gift for you." Ignatius went over to the crate and pulled a latch. Little Scorcher emerged from his cage, looking drowsy from the effects of dragon dust. Scramasax made a deep rumbling sound, then reached out with her tail and gently lifted Scorcher up. She soothed him, put him down beside her, and stared at us again. "Now," said Ignatius, "you have your baby back, stolen by a man I am sure you know, Dr. Ernest Drake." "Ah, yes, Dr. Drake," hissed Scramasax. "Perhaps he is not the one in whom dragons may place their trust after all. A human who can help dragons in their hour of need." "I fear he is not," said Ignatius, "since he is dead." "That is a shame," said Scramasax. "We placed a great deal of trust in him. The Society of Dragons was convinced he was the one who could help us. There was a feeling that the world needed a new dragon master. Perhaps we were mistaken." "Ebenezer Crook did not ask you to pass on that title to Drake." "And he did not see fit to ask us to pass it on to you, either," said Scramasax. "Perhaps he knew what our answer would have been." "My family has been dragon masters for nearly 300 years, said Ignatius. "If you give me the treasures that Ebenezer returned to you, then I would be able to help you. You would have no more trouble from Drake or his friends, I can assure you." "No more trouble would be welcome," said Scramasax. "But who are these human chicks? Why have you brought them to me?" "They are my gift to you, O Scramasax," said Ignatius. "They are the children of the one who stole the treasure that was entrusted to you." "Indeed?" said Scramasax, her eyes flaming as she peered at us. "That theft made me angry. Dragons cannot control their rage. I grew destructive on that occasion. Many humans suffered for it, and I hid in my cave for a long time afterward. Where is their parent now?" Beatrice could no longer contain herself. "Our father did not steal anything," she said. "It was Ignatius—" But at that Ignatius yanked the rope that held us so hard we both fell over. Beatrice got up. "It was Ignatius Crook," she replied. "He stole your treasure." The dragon turned to her. "Have you proof?" "Of course she doesn't have proof," said Ignatius. "She is desperate to save her own skin. I can assure you that their parents are the real criminals. They are far away, but they will be punished, I promise you, when I have the treasures." "Would you bargain with me?" hissed Scramasax. "As I told you the last time you came to my home, shortly after the theft of the precious horn, you are forbidden from entering my lair on pain of death." "I had hoped," said Ignatius, "that my returning your stolen chick would mitigate your rage somewhat, and allow you to see that I am your friend." "Indeed," said Scramasax. "My doubt as to your motives has prevented me from devouring you on the spot. But you have returned my chick. I will hear what you have to say outside." And so we made our way back out of the tunnel and onto the hillside, followed by Scramasax, who uncoiled her great bulk and slithered along behind us. I could not believe what I saw when we got back outside. Dr. Drake was waiting for us. As Ignatius stood, open-mouthed, Beatrice and I both tugged at the rope, which fell out of his hands, and we ran to Dr. Drake. "I saw you killed!" cried Ignatius. "You could never have survived so much dragon fire!" "Ignatius, Ignatius," said Dr. Drake patiently, untying the rope from around our hands. "Even you must have heard of that simple but extremely effective tool of the field dragonologist, the flame-proof cloak. What else would I have gone to pick up in London? After you thought I was dead, I made my way here and told Scramasax what you were up to. She wanted to make an interview right then and there. Luckily, she gave me the time to explain that there were 2 children with you who were under my care. She agreed to wait just a little longer before getting Scorcher back. It took all my powers of persuasion, I must admit, and it was a pretty close-run thing. Now I fear it is you who are in danger, and I rather fear that you will not be finding out where the dragon's eye is kept." "Isn't it here?" asked Ignatius, looking shaken. "Here," responded Scramasax. "By no means. But I know where it is kept, so you must pass by me before reaching it. The oldest and wisest dragon in these islands guards the dragon's eye, not a youth like myself. I am a mere 180 years old. Now I am just beginning, mind, to feel myself getting angry. I would start to run if I were you. I would run all the way to the horn that you stole from me and bring it here right away." "Don't believe Drake!" cried Ignatius. "John Cook took the horn." Scramasax reared back her head and let out a deafening roar. Flame erupted from her mouth, and she shook her head from side to side. Even Dr. Drake began to look a little alarmed, but Scramasax looked at Ignatius again. "Fool," she said. "I knew that it was you as soon as I smelt you again." "Why did you not kill me at once, then?" "If I killed you on the spot, I might never recover the horn." "Then I rather fear that it is you who are the fool," said Ignatius, and he laughed. "St. Gilbert's horn gave me a power that you do not know." He took out Dr. Drake's dragon whistle and blew 3 short blasts. Almost immediately there was a roar, and the gigantic green dragon I had seen attacking the train swooped down from a crag. It was nearly twice as big as Scramasax, and I guessed at once that it was the dragon that had been summoned when the man first blew Dr. Drake's whistle in Cornwall. Ignatius pointed to us. "Idrega," he cried, "your master commands you! Incinerate them!" The huge green dragon swooped down and would have blasted us all in a moment, had Scramasax not flown up to protect us. A mighty battle ensued as the 2 dragons swooped and flew loops round each other, each trying to burn, lash, and bite the other. Scramasax seemed doomed. The green dragon was so much larger. Soon Idrega grabbed Scramasax by the neck, and the 2 dragons became entangled. Unable to flap their wings, the pair fell to earth, where they continued wrestling and fighting with tooth, claw, and tail in a whirlwind of flame. Scramasax was growing weaker. She would not last very long. Suddenly, Scorcher bolted from the cave, racing to his mother's side. But in one swoop from Idrega's tail, he was knocked aside as the green dragon continued its savage attack. I turned and saw that Dr. Drake was grappling with Ignatius. One of the ruffians took out his pistol and tried in vain to aim it at Dr. Drake. Even Flitz joined in. He was flying round and round Dr. Drake's head, trying to scratch at his eyes. Meanwhile, Beatrice was trying to wrestle the box of dragon dust from the other man. "Give that back!" shouted Beatrice. I rushed to help Beatrice, dodging a sweep of Idrega's great tail. The man elbowed me in the ribs, but I managed to get a hold of him long enough for Beatrice to grab the box he was holding. "Leave those brats!" shouted Ignatius. "We can deal with them later." Dr. Drake was still struggling with Ignatius and the man with the gun. Dr. Drake had taken hold of the pistol, which was aimed at his face, and was trying to turn it away. But Ignatius was biting his arm. It could only be a matter of time. The other man left us and ran over to help them. Meanwhile, Beatrice was opening the box of dragon dust. "What are you doing?" I said. "We need to get away from here." "We have to do something," she said. "Look!" She opened the box, and I saw that it contained a fine silvery powder and a silver dish. "Abramellam's taming spell!" I cried. "Can you remember the words?" "I think so," she said. "Can you?" "Yes, but do you think it will work? Will one taming spell cancel out another? And don't we need 3 Troy ounces? How much is that?" "I don't know, but we must give it a try." We stood side by side, poured out a good portion of dragon dust onto the silver tray, and cast it over the dragons as we cried, "What are you doing? Any more taming spells, Boyar Gunnar Gadet?" Nothing seemed to happen for a moment. Then, suddenly, the dragons froze. The green dragon dropped its head and looked as though it was dazed. Then, seeing us, it came over and looked at us inquisitively, as though asking what we wanted. The red dragon did not stir. Flitz dropped out of the sky and landed with a bump. "Save Dr. Drake!" commanded Beatrice. At once Idrega flicked his tail and sent Ignatius and his ruffians flying. Dr. Drake lay panting on the ground as the pistol spun away. With a look of contempt, Idrega trod on it with his huge claw, crushing the barrel flat. "Idrega!" cried Ignatius. "Your master commands you! Kill Dr. Drake!" Idrega looked at him blankly. Beatrice turned to Ignatius, a look of fierce hatred on her face. Then she relaxed. The dark thought had passed. "Ignatius Crook," she said, "if I were you, I would leave. Now!" Ignatius stood for a second, open-mouthed. Then he turned and ran down the mountain as fast as he could, followed by the 2 ruffians. We went over to Dr. Drake and helped him to his feet. "Oh, thank you," he said. "You both acted like true dragonologists." "What about the dragons?" I asked. "You have charmed them," he said. "You must release them." "Can't you do it?" I said. "I cannot," said Dr. Drake. "They are under your command." "How do we release them?" asked Beatrice. "Oh, it's quite simple, really," said Dr. Drake. "You've only just used enough dragon dust to counter the charm that Ignatius used. The effect will wear off soon. Until then, I suggest that you simply command them to obey no one but themselves." I looked at the dragons. A thought occurred to me. Idrega was a remarkable creature. Who knew how far he could fly? Our parents might be in desperate danger at any moment. I imagined myself riding him triumphantly across the Thar Desert to save them, blasting dark dragonologists from my path. "But can't we—" "No," said Dr. Drake. "This is the most important lesson of all. A dragonologist does not take advantage of dragons, and he never uses spells or charms against them. A dragonologist simply seeks to study dragons, and to conserve and protect those dragons that still remain." I hung my head, but Beatrice came and put her arm round my shoulder. "Let's do it together," she said. So we both stood before the 3 dragons. "Dragons," said Beatrice, "you are free. Obey no one," I added, "but yourselves." Dr. Drake smiled. Idrega let out a sigh. Flitz sat up and hissed at us. Then he flew off after Ignatius, giving me a nasty scratch as he passed. Excuse me. "Idrega," said Dr. Drake, "I apologize that you have had to suffer the indignity of taming, and so crudely. In a way, it is partly my fault, because I did not realize just how much Ignatius had managed to learn, or how much he had gathered. I ask only that you forgive us, and that you go in peace." The dragon bowed his mighty head. He gestured toward Scramasax with his claw. Scorcher, who was not really hurt, was snuffling at his mother, making very sad little noises. Dr. Drake was at the red dragon's side in a moment. As Dr. Drake knelt by her enormous head, the prone dragon let out a long, rasping breath. My heart leapt, for it seems that Scramasax was not dead after all. She raised her head a little off the ground.
"Drake," she said, "I am badly wounded. I must sleep in my lair for a long time in order to recover my strength. Scorcher will be all right. He can stay with me and help me recover. But I have another egg that is not yet hatched. I cannot look after it while I heal. I would not even trust another dragon with it. But you will become Dragon Master, I am sure. So I will trust you. Will you take care of it for me until I am strong enough to come and claim my baby from you?"
"I will," said Dr. Drake, "and I will keep it safe from harm and raise it properly as a wild dragon, so that when you are able to, you may bring it back to its home, here."
"Then I thank you,"
said Scramasax.
"And now I shall tell you what you seek to know. The Dragon's Eye is guarded by the most ancient dragon still living in the British Isles. She is the one who knows the ways of humans better than all other dragons. But I am not able to simply tell you where to find her lair. You must pass a riddle test. Listen. Near Wantley's smokestack lies a door that's hidden by a barren floor. Oh, do not go the smokestack way, or fire and flames shall mark your stay. Go underground, now that you've heard, and take the Wantley Dam her word."
And with that, Scramasax began to drag herself into her lair, with Dr. Drake following. Soon he emerged again, carefully cradling something large and round in his flame-proof cloak. "This cloak will help to keep the egg warm and your fingers cool," he said. "Do not touch the egg itself. It will burn you. Beatrice, will you look after it?" I opened my mouth to speak, but Dr. Drake gave me a smile and said, "When we reach St. Leonard's Forest, you may look after it together." He then turned to Idrega and said, "But now we have a problem. We still need to solve that riddle and find the Dragon's Eye before Ignatius. Idrega, will you help us?" "I long to get back to my lair in Wales, for who else but I can protect my hoard? But for releasing me, yes, I will help you," said Idrega. "Then we shall fly back to my home, Idrega." Dr. Drake turned to us and said, "Prepare yourselves, my dears, for you two are about to have your first ride on a dragon. But you must be careful, for we will be flying bareback." And that is where we are going to leave off for today, guys. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, of course, be sure to tune in tomorrow for some more Dragonology Chronicles, The Dragon's Eye. Boom, boom, boom. So, if you enjoyed, please check out our other live programs, Toddler Time with Miss Becky, Stories with Sunny, and Creating with Constance. Don't forget, summer reading is wrapping up at the end of this week, so you have through Saturday to get your reading minutes entered in to Beanstack, or your logs turned in, or however you're doing it this summer, so that you can get the chances to win the prizes entered in. The libraries are open, but you can still get curbside service if you prefer. Don't forget to come in and get our new grab-and-go bags for this week at each of the 3 buildings. Be sure to come down and to White Mountain and the downtown library and check out our cool sidewalk obstacle courses that we have. If you do both of them, you get entered into an ice cream-related drawing, which is pretty darn cool. And, of course, don't forget that you still have access to digital content as well through sweetwaterlibraries.com. I think that's all from me for today, guys, so thanks so much for tuning in, and we will see you tomorrow.